Maybe both connecting with the Acts 16 passage that you were talking about and some of your own engagement there at Bayview.
Well, maybe I should start with, since folks are from all over, the Bayview Hunters Point is a neighborhood that some would call one of the abandoned places of the empire. And so it's a place where, I mean, it's history. It's just has a lot of migration, a lot of immigrants, a lot of poverty. Our city is a place where, for varying reasons, the public schools in our neighborhood are not supported and are not very functional, given we actually have kind of a market system in how people enroll for school. And so if you're living in this neighborhood, you choose out. And so it just decimates the community. But like other parts of San Francisco, we also have gentrification. We have the tech companies kind of moving from south to north. My own congregation, as we planted, a lot of us actually were also professionals. It's a largely Asian American congregation. And we were trying to find our way and, well, what does God want us to be? The core group came out of another church that was in the neighborhood called the Mission. They were in the center of the city, and all we knew was that we wanted to go to some other place where we could practice being the church, seeking the kingdom, and in places where maybe others were not. And so we had a very long and circuitous route. After 15 years, we've been in 4 different locations, and right now we have less than a year left on the lease that we're in. And so the Acts 16 passage, where the Apostle Paul has a vision to go to Macedonia, has that vision of a man saying, come over, begging him to come and help. He ends up there, and I don't need to tell the story, but he ends up being led there and finding a woman named Lydia, and not finding her normal, or his normal strategy of, he goes to the city center, but doesn't find a synagogue, ends up outside the gate. And so all this kind of circuitous, fluid kind of following, I feel like that's been our story. Maybe I can just tell one about how we ended up where we are. As a congregation that has many Chinese Americans who actually were born and raised in San Francisco, they were told to not go to the Bayview. It's not safe for you there. It's violent there. It's like, you don't go there. And so when we first started, we were looking in a certain corner of the city where a lot of us lived, and we said, well, maybe this neighborhood, maybe this neighborhood, maybe that neighborhood, but probably not the Bayview, because I don't think we can see ourselves going there. And as God would have it, in the story of Acts 6, doors closed. We try to go to Outer Mission, we try to go to Ingleside, and the doors closed on that. And when we were in our first space, which was in the neighborhood that I live in and walking distance from where I live now, we just outgrew it and couldn't stay there. And so we were still looking in our neighborhood, and we ended up in this place where, I mean, it was a shabby place. I mean, it was a body shop, auto body shop, and the realtor just said, you don't want to go there. You can't put a church in there. And so then he directed us over to the Bayview, and then we ended up on the edge of the Bayview for a lot of years. And so, well, this is where we are, at least for the next 5 years. So we had a lease. And so then we started going out, and I'll just tell one of the groups that we ended up connecting with was a school, and ended up being in partnership with them for many years. And there was also a couple of churches that really welcomed us. And so this kind of going out and being received, that led us to staying in the Bayview. And if I jump really far, it was also a very circuitous route with all this involvement with that particular school, as well as our own public schools. And then coming to the realization that even though we had so much commitment to public school, we got to the point where we realized that these were not salvageable. And we felt like the Lord was leading us to start our own school. And so we started Rise University Prep, middle school that we think will go on to being a high school eventually. But this is our first year, and we're still trusting and risking and following. So that's just a little bit.
So let me just play into one of the things that Sally talks about, is trying to figure out how to describe herself. As a philosophy professor who also teaches social studies and other things at the local community college, from what I hear in you also, you're constantly doing theology. Your church has changed how it views God and walking with God during these years. Can you describe some of that, just what you've seen go on among the people during this engagement?
Well, following along in this missional conversation, I know that Luke 10 and the sending out of the 70 is a very key text. And so our congregation did Lectio on Luke 10 for, I don't know, I'm going to say 6 months. Every Wednesday.
A lot of correspondence during that.
And so during that period, we were trying to shift that mentality that somehow, you know, God is, I mean, we do believe that God is, there's a way in which God's particularly present in the gathered people, but that didn't necessarily need to equate to that it's in this particular building and then you invite them all into this place. And so we were intrigued by the idea of going out 2 by 2 and finding places of welcome. And so to find that, you know, God's at work out there. And so we can't actually discern God's initiatives without being out in the neighborhood and listening to folks and walking the streets and praying and just meeting folks and engaging in the neighborhood. And so that's, I think we've always believed that God was out there, but to go out and to discern it. And so I have a very regular sending that I do now where I say, you know, we're sent out to a God-blessed world where God is present and sent to all the places that, you know, we're going to all these places that we're sent to and we're looking for God there. So.